Hey guys, this is an extract from a chapter in Book 3 of the Stormlight Archive. It's called Oathbringer. My favorite series by far, and my favorite author, Brandon Sanderson, the dude who finished the Wheel of Time series. I'm leaving out a bunch of the girl's thoughts as she narrates this to avoid any major spoilers, but there's one minor spoiler in here, but I think it's safe. The spoiler's indirect. You won't even realize that it's a spoiler if you decide to read this amazing book because you're just going to get immersed in the journey. But real quick, two things. So in this series called Stormlight Archive, there are storms that fly around the planet. So when the person she's telling this to says, "Oh, that's where the storms come from," that's what he's referring to. And she's like, "No, this is just a story." Second, there are things called spren. Think of them like fairies, kind of made out of energy. So the girl narrating is named Shallan, and the spren that she's speaking to right here is called Pattern. "The girl who looked up," she whispered. There was a girl. This was before the storms, before memories, and before legends, but there was still a girl. She wore a long scarf to blow in the wind. A vibrant red scarf grew around the girl's neck, twin tails extending far behind her and flapping in a phantom wind. The players had made the scarf hang behind the girl using the strings from above. It had seemed so real. The girl in the scarf played and danced, as girls do today, Shallan said, making the child prance around Pattern. In fact, most things were the same then as they are today, except for one big difference: the wall. The girl stepped toward it, looking up, straining to see the top. You see, in those days, a wall kept out the storms. It had existed for so long, nobody knew how it had been built. That did not bother them. Why wonder when the mountains began or why the sky was high? Like these things were, so the wall was. The girl danced in its shadow, and other girls sprang up from Shallan's light. Each was a person from one of her sketches. They worked as farmers or washwomen, doing their duties with heads bowed. Only the girl looked up at the wall, her twin scarf tails streaming behind her. She approached a man standing behind a small cart of fruit. "Why is there a wall?" she asked the man selling fruit. "To keep the bad things out," he replied. "What bad things?" "Very bad things. There is a wall. Do not go beyond it, or you shall die." The fruit seller picked up his cart and moved away, and still, the girl looked up at the wall. Pattern hovered beside her and hummed happily to himself. "Why is there a wall?" she asked the woman suckling her child. "To protect us," the woman said. "To protect us from what?" "Very bad things. There is a wall. Do not go beyond it, or you shall die." The woman took her child and left. The girl climbed a tree, peeking out the top, her scarf streaming behind her. "Why is there a wall?" she called to the boy, sleeping lazily in the nook of a branch. "What wall?" the boy asked. The girl thrust her finger pointedly toward the wall. "That's not a wall," the boy said, drowsy. "That's just the way the sky is over there." "It's a wall," the girl said, "a giant wall." "It must be there for a purpose," the boy said. "Yes, it is a wall. Don't go beyond it, or you'll probably die." These answers did not satisfy the girl who looked up. She reasoned to herself, if the wall kept evil things out, then the space on this side of it should be safe. So one night, while the others of the village slept, she sneaked from her home with a bundle of supplies. She walked toward the wall, and indeed, the land was safe. But it was also dark, always in the shadow of that wall. No sunlight ever directly reached the people. The girl traveled far. No predators hunted her, and no storms assaulted her. The only wind was the pleasant one that played with her scarf, and the only creatures she saw were the kremlings that clicked at her as she walked. At long last, the girl in the scarf stood before the wall. It was truly expansive, running as far as she could see in either direction, and its height, it reached almost the Tranquillian halls. "What happened?" Pattern said. "Shallan, I must know. What happened? Did she turn back?" "Of course she didn't turn back," Shallan said. "She climbed." There were outcroppings in the wall, things like these spikes or hunched, ugly statues. She had climbed the highest trees all through her youth. She could do this. The climb took days. At night, the girl who looked up would tie herself a hammock out of her scarf and sleep there. She picked out her village at one point, remarking on how small it seemed now that she was so high. As she neared the top, she finally began to fear what she would find on the other side. Unfortunately, this fear did not stop her. She was young, and questions bothered her more than fear. So it was that she finally struggled to the very top and stood to see the other side, the hidden side. And on that side of the wall, the girl saw steps. The back side of the wall was crisscrossed with enormous sets of steps leading down to the ground, so distant. "What? What does it mean?" Pattern said. The girl stared at those steps, Shallan whispered, remembering, and suddenly the gruesome statues on her side of the wall made sense. The spears, the way it cast everything into shadow. The wall did indeed hide something evil, something frightening. It was the people, like the girl, and her village. "That's how it ended?" Pattern asked. "No," Shallan said, stormlight puffing from her lips. She goes down, sees a perfect society lit by stormlight. She steals some and brings it back. The storms come as punishment, tearing down the wall. Ah, Pattern said, hovering beside her on the now dull stage. So that's how the storms first began. Of course not, Shallan said, feeling tired. It's a lie, Pattern. A story. It doesn't mean anything. Then why are you crying? She wiped her eyes and turned away from the empty stage. She needed to get back to the markets. Alright, you can close out now if you don't want any minor spoilers, but I'm going to kind of explain what this means without details. In 5, 4, 3, 2. So it's a really interesting perspective. I freaking love Brandon Sanderson. The way he writes and just the content of what he writes is awesome. So normally when we think of walls and people putting up personal walls, it's sort of to protect them, to keep other things out. You're putting up walls to block other people's voices, their insult, whatever it is, right? But here's an interpretation that I never really thought about, and it's interesting. It's like I can step into someone else's shoes for a minute. So Shallan's basically in denial. She has some darkness in her past that she's sort of running from. So she's sort of portraying herself as this girl, and she's climbing back over that wall to the other side. I think she's sort of coming to grips with her past, which is pretty cool. She's an amazing character. Really, really intelligent and constantly changing and growing. I kind of love her, but not as much as I love Kaladin, my man Kaladin Stormblast. Bridge 4, bridge forward.